Discover the incredible journey of the lonely rancher who changed a beaten mother's life forever. The Texas sun hung high in the sky, casting shadows over the vast, sun-baked plains. Among the rolling fields lived Jack, a middle-aged rancher whose blue jeans and weathered cowboy hat made him a familiar sight in small-town Texas. Each morning, he rode out with a sense of purpose shaped by years as a soldier, a man who fought for something greater. But beneath his rugged exterior lay a heart heavy with loneliness. Years had passed since he lost his family to the relentless grind of ranch life, and each evening, as the sun sank below the horizon, memories clouded him, urging him to remember the laughter of loved ones, a warmth now lost to bitter solitude. One afternoon, as he drove through town, something caught his eye: a rundown trailer on the outskirts. His heart tugged at the sight, as it was there that Sarah lived, a weary single mother fresh from the scars of an abusive past. Jack noticed her 2 children playing in the dirt, their laughter a surprising reminder of innocence amid their harsh reality. It struck a chord deep within him, the vibrant sound contrasting sharply with his own quiet life. Later that week, their paths finally crossed. Jack learned of Sarah's struggles, her fight against poverty and despair, a constant battle to make ends meet for her children. He felt a powerful rush of compassion surging through him. With each story, Jack felt the tightness in his chest begin to loosen. He saw in Sarah the same resilience he admired in the horses he raised. Without thinking twice, he offered her work on his ranch, a chance for stability that she so desperately needed. As days turned into weeks, their bond began to flourish. They shared stories, laughter, and glances loaded with unspoken understanding. Jack finally felt a connection again, while Sarah saw flickers of hope where darkness had threatened to consume her. But just as light broke through, shadows loomed on the horizon. Whispers began to spread through the community, whispers that ignited judgment and prejudice. Residents questioned Jack's intentions, and Sarah worried about being seen as reliant on someone from a different world. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just when it seemed they could overcome the barriers, a misunderstanding erupted, a rumor that threatened to shatter their fragile connection. Jack found himself torn between defending Sarah and guarding his own reeling heart. Meanwhile, Sarah wrestled with shame and fear for her children's future. What started as a lifeline thrown between 2 tortured souls now threatened to entrap them in a web of doubt and judgment. The air grew thick with tension as they prepared to confront their community, words of compassion meeting an ocean of prejudice. The stakes were high, as both knew they must dig deep within themselves to decide if they could rise above the scrutiny for the sake of their newfound kinship. As the sun set over the Texas plains, casting golden hues over their lives, they stood at a crossroads. Would the bond they forged endure, or would their moment of hope slip into darkness? Only time would reveal the truth of their incredible journey. Standing on the cusp of the unknown, Jack and Sarah exchanged a glance filled with unspoken words. It was in that electric moment that Jack realized how much he had come to care for her and her children. The turmoil around them reminded him of battles he had fought before, but this fight was different. It wasn't just about guns and glory, it was about hearts and hope. As they approached the local diner, where townsfolk gathered like vultures waiting for news, Jack's heart raced. The small building buzzed with hushed conversations that abruptly quieted as they stepped inside. Glances were thrown their way, heavy with judgment. It felt like walking into a storm without an umbrella. Sarah fidgeted beside him, her fingers twisting a threadbare hem of her shirt. Jack placed a reassuring hand on her back, grounding her in the swirling chaos. "Might want to go back where you came from," one voice sneered from a corner booth. Jack's fists clenched, but he kept his expression steady. He had seen hostility before, but this felt like an attack on something pure, something he cherished deeply. "Let them talk, Jack," Sarah murmured, her voice barely a whisper. "We can't let them take this away from us." "No, Sarah," he replied, determination hardening his gaze. "They won't scare us off so easily." "Not now." Minutes passed like hours as word spread. It seemed the entire town had something to say about their unusual partnership. Some faces showed concern while others lit up with disdain. A group of ranchers at the counter sneered openly. Jack could feel the heat rising within him, the instinct to defend Sarah overwhelming. Before he could speak, Sarah stepped forward, her voice steady even as fear trembled beneath her surface. "I'm not here for charity," she said, her courage catching him off guard. "I've worked hard at the ranch. I don't need defending, I'm here because I want to be." Jack watched as she stood tall, her spirit unyielding. The tension in the air shifted, an uncertain pause as the diner's clamor died momentarily. Perhaps they too were recognizing her brave stance. He felt his chest swell with pride. In that moment, he knew she was not just a single mother, she was a fighter, and they were in this together, but even in her brilliance, shadows lingered. A woman in the back shot them a cold stare, her lips twisted in disgust. "What's next? You going to stay here forever? You think they'll accept you?" Sarah's shoulders slumped slightly as those words hit, doubt creeping in. Jack wanted to comfort her, to make every dark thought vanish. "We write our own story," he reminded her, but the truth hung heavy in the air. Days turned into weeks, and soon rumors morphed into a palpable rift between Jack and the townsfolk. They didn't just want to push Sarah out, they wanted to push Jack too. Anxiety gripped the air as friends turned to silent watchers. Jack felt the distance growing, and with it, his resolve weakened. One evening, sitting on the porch after another long day of work, Jack glanced over at Sarah, whose gaze was cast out towards the fading horizon. "Why do we even try?" she asked, sadness rippling through her like a low tide. "Maybe it would be easier just to leave." His heart broke at her words. "But what if this is our chance? What if we don't just survive, but thrive? We can't give in to fear." As the stars blinked to life in the Texas sky, a sense of determination emerged among the shadows. But little did they know, another storm was brewing, one that would threaten everything they had fought to build. Jack felt it in his bones. This wasn't over. They had a fight ahead, and it would take everything they had. What would happen when a cruel twist of fate brought their pasts crashing back to haunt them? The question loomed large as they faced the coming dawn, unwittingly perched on the edge of uncertainty. The sun peeked over the horizon, casting a soft glow on the ranch. Jack sat on the porch, his coffee steaming beside him. The night had been restless. He could still feel Sarah's doubt hanging in the air, heavy like thick fog. He wanted to shake off the worries, but they clung to him. The kids were still asleep inside, their faces peaceful and innocent. Jack knew he had to be their protector now, even as uncertainty loomed. As he took a deep sip of coffee, the warmth wrapped around him momentarily. He had always been a man of action, but words were failing him now. "Morning," Sarah said, stepping out onto the porch. The light caught her hair, making it shine like spun gold. She looked tired, but there was a flicker of determination in her eyes. "Hey there," Jack replied, forcing a smile. "Ready for another day?" She sighed, looking back at the horizon. "I guess we have no choice, do we? It's not like the ranch is going to run itself." "Exactly," he said, trying to fill the silence with optimism. "We'll get through this together. One day at a time." The two shared a quiet moment, the sounds of the ranch waking up around them. The chickens clucked and the wind rustled the grass, but Jack's mind was elsewhere. The townsfolk's hostility weighed heavily on him, echoing the past he had tried so hard to leave behind. "Jack, can we talk?" Sarah asked, breaking the silence he had been dreading. "About what you said yesterday." "Sure," Jack said cautiously. He leaned forward, bracing himself for her words. "What if leaving isn't the worst option? I mean, we could find a place where people accept us." The thought pierced him like a knife. "You want to run away?" He shot back, his voice rising more than he intended. "We can't just abandon everything we've built." "I'm not saying abandon. Her voice shook, frustration blending with vulnerability. "I don't want us to suffer. I just want what's best for the kids." Jack's fists clenched. He reached out, taking her hands in his. "What's best is for them to see us standing strong. We can't back down. Not now. This isn't just about us, it's about showing them that love and courage matter, even when things get hard. There was a flicker of something in Sarah's eyes, defiance, maybe hope. But it faded too quickly. I just don't know if I'm strong enough, she admitted softly, allowing her gaze to drop to the ground. He squeezed her hands tighter, shaking off doubt that threatened to creep in. You are. You've faced so much already. You're already fighting. We will make this right. We just need to stay together. As if responding to her thoughts, they heard a commotion from the direction of town. It sounded like shouting. Instinct kicked in, and Jack felt his heart race. Let us go see what's happening, he said, letting go of her hands and heading toward the sounds. They approached the edge of town, where a gathering had formed. Faces they knew turned to him, their expressions twisted with anger. As they got closer, Jack's stomach dropped. The townsfolk were rallying against something. Or someone. Get out. You don't belong here. A harsh voice rang out, clearly cutting through the crowd. Jack's heart pounded. He recognized the woman from the diner, the one who had treated Sarah with contempt. Enough! Jack shouted, stepping forward, adrenaline firing in his veins. Sarah grabbed his arm, fear flashing in her eyes. Jack, wait. This isn't a fight we can win. But the moment to back down had passed. As the crowd turned to him, tension electrified the air. He couldn't show weakness. Not now. Not ever. The call for courage echoed within him. He stepped onto the makeshift stage of fear and uncertainty, ready to defend the woman who meant everything to him. What would he say? Could his words penetrate the hostility? The weight of the moment settled on him. It was time to face the storm, but would he stand alone? Jack took a deep breath, his chest rising as he looked out at the crowd. Faces he recognized, people who once nodded at him in good faith, now twisted with anger. They were like a pack of wolves ready to pounce, but he wouldn't let fear cripple him. Listen! He called out, voice steady but rising over the waves of resentment. You think we don't belong here? You think that's what defines us? The crowd shifted, their murmurs swirling like a storm. Jack could see Sarah behind him, her fingers curled nervously into fists. He turned slightly, offering her a quick glance, letting her know he would stand firm. They say history repeats itself for a reason, he continued, harnessing every ounce of conviction he had in him. You think by pushing us away, it will somehow erase the scars that come from hate? It won't. This, he gestured widely, hoping to envelop everyone with his fervor, is our home. We're not running. We're staying, and we're not going to let fear dictate our lives. The anger simmered. Some faces hardened further, but he noticed a few flinching, caught off guard by his words. It was a small victory, but Jack held on to it. Families. Love. That's what matters. He shouted, his voice carrying through the chilly morning. We're all just people trying to live, to survive. We're not so different, you and I. You want your kids to thrive, just like I do. We have everything that ties us together. A gruff man in the front scoffed loudly. You don't know our way of life. He shouted back. No, I don't. Jack admitted, frustration creeping into his voice. But I know how it feels to be judged. To be labeled before you've had a chance to show who you are. He felt Sarah's presence shift behind him, the weight of her breathing somehow igniting a fire within him. He could feel his heart racing as he continued. I've made mistakes. We all have. But pushing others away only leads to more pain. Can't you see that? Slowly, one by one, Jack could see people glancing at each other, unsure of their own anger. He seized the moment, pushing himself forward even more. I'm not asking for acceptance. I'm asking for a chance. He looked straight into the eyes of the woman who had sneered at Sarah in the diner. You once served us, and I thought you understood what it means to care for your neighbors. Maybe we should learn from each other instead. A silence fell over the crowd. It was heavy, thick with emotion. Jack could feel the tension shifting, albeit slowly. There was something fragile in the air. It felt like a glass about to shatter, but perhaps it could also mend. Together, we could build something better, he added softer, hoping sincerity would break through the ice. We can stand stronger if we face this, shoulder to shoulder. And then, as if in answer, murmurs of agreement began to ripple through the crowd, challenging the anger that had wrapped around them like a poison. Jack's heart swelled with a mix of hope and dread. "Jack?" Sarah's voice trembled slightly in the quiet that followed. He turned to find her looking up at him, wide-eyed. "Did we just?" she began, unsure of where she was going but alive with possibility. "Maybe," he replied, a tentative smile breaking through. But celebration felt premature. There remained a storm to weather. Suddenly, the same woman who had shouted just moments ago stepped forward, eyes glistening with something almost resembling fear mixed with curiosity. "You think we can just come together like that?" Jack's breath caught. "Why not? What do we have to lose?" The tension thickened again. The entire town seemed to draw in a breath, poised at the edge of something new and uncharted, but would they truly take a step toward transformation? Or would the walls they had built prove too strong to tear down? Jack found himself holding onto that hope tightly as uncertainty danced in the air. With a fleeting glance at Sarah, he felt the gravity of the moment. He didn't know how this would end, or if they would all walk away as friends or foes. But he knew one thing: the journey had only just begun. Would they embrace it, or would fear send them spiraling back into the shadows? The air was thick with anticipation as Jack stood on the makeshift platform, facing the crowd. It felt like a fragile truce teetering at the brink. The woman's gaze weighed heavy on him, filled with questions that clawed at the back of his mind. "Can we really put our differences aside?" she finally asked, her voice trembling on the edge of doubt. Jack took a step closer, his heart pounding. "Yes," he breathed, the word hanging in the air like a promise. "But it starts with us being willing to listen. Together, we can create something that honors both our pasts and our future." The murmurs grew louder again, and Jack could see the flickers of hope begin to reach some of the faces. A young man in the back of the crowd began nodding slowly, like a bud unfurling in the spring. Yet, at the same time, eyes still glared with skepticism. "Why should we trust you?" Another voice called out, sending a ripple of tension through the crowd. Jack swallowed hard, his mind racing for a response that would resonate. "Because I'm just like you." His hands moved expressively, feeling the energy shift. "I've struggled. I've fought against fear and rejection. But by being here today, I'm risking everything for unity, for love." The gruff man from earlier stepped forward again, crossing his arms defiantly. "Words won't change anything," he proclaimed, his voice echoing across the open space. "Promises are just that, empty." "Then let us fill them with action," Jack countered, trying to catch the man's gaze but finding his eyes hard and unyielding. "Let us work side by side, rebuild what has been broken, brick by brick." Jack glanced at Sarah, and she raised an eyebrow, her hope mingled with unease. They had ventured so far, yet the path still felt treacherous. He could sense the road was long, littered with doubt and uncertainty. But, amidst the fear, he felt a pulse of determination that ignited within him, spurred on by the flickering responses of the crowd. A woman stepped forward from the back, her eyes glistening. "My son, he is scared. He doesn't understand why there is so much anger around us." Her voice quavered, and Jack realized how deep the town's wounds ran. Jack softened instantly. What if we showed him? What if we transformed that fear into understanding? "Your son deserves to grow up knowing he is part of a community, not a battleground." The woman glanced at her neighbors, seeking a spark of agreement. Jack watched as others began glancing around, some nodding subtly, their defenses cracking ever so slightly. He could feel a change, like a breeze sweeping through the crowd, shifting their perspective, but then, like a dark cloud forming, the gruff man spoke again. "And what if it fails? What if rebuilding just leads to us getting hurt more?" Jack steadied himself, the weight of those questions crashing down. "I can't promise it'll be easy," he admitted, his voice now steady, carving through the fear. "But isn't living in fear worse than risking hurt? We have a choice: to remain divided or to learn together. Let us risk hurting in pursuit of healing." The crowd seemed to pause, contemplating his words. Silence fell once more, the tension palpable. Jack felt the adrenaline rushing through him, a headiness of hope mixed with dread. And then, a small hand shot into the air from the back, an elderly man with twinkling eyes, speaking for the first time. I remember when we came together for the harvest festival. I remember laughter. We can find our way back. The crowd shifted again, something sparking in the air, a sense of connection. Jack's heart raced as he embraced the moment. Yes. Let us bring back the festivals, the traditions. Let us build something from those shared memories. Slowly but surely, the crowd began to break into whispered agreements, nods of understanding, as if the dam was crumbling. Jack felt a rush of pride and relief wash over him, but his joy was tempered by the lingering cloud of the unknown. Would this fragile moment hold? Could the tides really turn towards acceptance? The weight of possibility tugged at him, rising with each heartbeat. As murmurs of change filled the space, Jack glanced at Sarah beside him, the embers of community igniting in her eyes. They were at the brink of something big. Why was he still holding his breath? Jack took another step forward, raising his voice once more. Let us take this first step together, right now. Who us with us? And in that moment, he felt the heartbeat of the town shift, but would it be enough? Would they find strength in unity, or would the echoes of doubt drown out their cries for change? The answer felt just out of reach, building suspense in the air like a taut string needing its final pluck. Jack's heart pounded as he searched the crowd for the faces he had seen just moments before. Some of the tension had lifted, the air thickening with possibility, yet doubt still lingered in the corners. He could sense that for every nod of agreement, there were many more who remained frozen, clinging to their skepticism like a lifeline. The elderly man with twinkling eyes was the first to step forward, his voice stronger than before. I remember a time when we didn't just survive, we thrived. We lived for more than just the shadows of our fears. He swept his hand toward the horizon, where the sun began to dip low, casting a warm glow over the gathering. Look at this land. It has fed us, sheltered us. Together it could do so much more. Jack felt the weight of those words. Shoulders began to relax, fists unclenching. A woman near the front wiped a tear from her eye, and Jack locked eyes with her, sensing an unspoken connection. Imagine our children growing under that sun, foraging friendships, weaving stories, the man continued, his voice rising with conviction. Let us bring back the laughter he remembers. Let us pour everything we have into healing. A ripple of agreement moved through the crowd. Jack noticed the young man from before, now standing tall, urging his neighbors to join him. We've lost so much, he said, his voice rising. But if we stand together, we can create a place where our fears are not the only things that define us. Jack smiled as he felt hope coat the air again, thicker now, as it entwined with the community's homecoming. Let us start small, he called out, sweeping his arms wide. Let us gather once a month, share food, stories, rebuild our trust. Let us create a space where every voice counts. Who us in? Hands began to rise, an electric connection starting to hum through those assembled. Count me in, shouted a woman with bright red hair, who stepped up excitedly next to the elderly man. I'll cook. I'll bring my famous apple pie. I'll help organize, chimed in the young man. One by one, the crowd seemed to snap from their fear-induced paralysis. Voices mingled and surged, ideas flowing. Jack's heart soared as he recognized the unity forming, a kaleidoscope of individuals turning into a singular movement. But then the gruff man, still eyes shadowed by years of hurt, stepped back into view. What if it all falls apart again? He asked, his voice quieter now but still heavy with caution. What if we're just dragging up old wounds? Then we'll heal together, Jack said, his gaze unwavering. Every wound takes time to mend, and it won't be clean or easy. But the power lies in trying and lifting each other when we stumble. The man considered this, a flicker of vulnerability breaking through his hard exterior. Jack felt the tension hanging in the air, the moment stretched like a fragile thread about to snap. Would this be enough for them to pursue this dream? Finally, the gruff man nodded slowly, as if awakening from a long slumber. Then I'll try, he muttered, almost to himself. Cheers erupted, electric excitement cutting through the air as hands clasped in solidarity. Jack couldn't believe what he was witnessing. The crowd, once mired in doubt, had taken a breath, united in a new purpose. Jack looked toward Sarah, who wore a glimmering smile. He could almost see her heart dancing in rhythm with the crowd's joy. They were weaving something new together, each thread too valuable to ignore. Holding on to hope, Jack started, his own voice tinged with emotion. It begins right here, right now. But as laughter broke out among the crowd, Jack felt a wave of apprehension wash over him. Could they truly hold on to this fragile spark, or would it flicker away when faced with real setbacks? The question loomed heavy in his chest. As the cheers continued, Jack caught a glimpse of the gruff man standing silently, grappling with doubt hidden behind the excitement. The future felt less certain than ever, looming like an unturned page, holding potential. But would they be ready for whatever came next? The sun set gently over the landscape, painting everything in hues of orange and pink as the crowd began to disperse. Jack stood at the center, his pulse still racing from the moments of shared hope. He turned to Sarah, who stood beside him, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Did you see their faces?" she said, her voice warm and infectious. "It's like we breathed life back into them." Jack nodded, but his heart still carried that nagging doubt. What if it's temporary? What if they don't come back next month? His voice was lower, tinged with uncertainty. "Maybe we just take it one step at a time," Sarah replied softly, placing her hand on his shoulder. "We can build this trust together. One meeting, one meal at a time." He felt her warmth seep into him, but darkness still loomed. Looking out at the emptying field, he caught sight of the gruff man from earlier, now watching from the edge of the gathering. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that his enthusiasm was fragile, and that man's worries could weigh heavily on their mission. As night began to settle in, Jack went to find the man. "Hey," Jack started, hesitant. "Can we talk?" The man's face was drawn, shadows carving deep lines around his tired eyes. "What is it?" "I want to understand your fears about the idea of starting again," Jack said, taking a step closer, hoping to bridge the gap. The man shifted uncomfortably. "You don't know what it's like losing everything. I've buried too many dreams." Each word felt like a rock being placed on Jack's heart, heavy and cold. "I can't say I do," Jack admitted, his voice sincere. "But I know what it feels like to see that hope kindled in others. It's worth fighting for." The man let out a harsh laugh, filled with pent-up sorrow. "You think it's that simple? What if this all crumbles again? I won't survive it a second time." Jack took a steady breath, feeling the weight of the man's words. "But what if we find a way to carry each other through the hardship? What if we become stronger together?" For a brief moment, Jack saw a flicker of yearning in the man's eyes, an ember smothered under ashes, wanting to rise again. "You're young. This dream, it might break you. Or it might change everything," Jack fired back, his passion igniting once more. "You said it yourself. We can't let fear keep us from trying. If we stand here together, maybe we can protect each other from the storms." The man hesitated, contemplation washing over his features. Jack could almost see the internal battle playing out. Maybe it wasn't just about hope, it was about vulnerability too. "I don't know if I'm ready," he finally admitted. Jack smiled, a real one this time. "I get that. None of us know the future. But if you want to come, we'll be waiting. No pressure, just a seat at the table." Jack turned to walk back, and as he did, he felt a weight lift just a fraction. Maybe they wouldn't break together, but they could explore what rebuilding meant. The following week, Jack threw himself into organizing the gathering. He caught snippets of conversations, each concern revealing layers of pain and resilience. Sarah brought flyers to raise awareness, and one afternoon, she proposed they make a community garden. Everyone could plant something, watch it grow, and nurture it as they nurtured their bonds. Posting flyers around the town, Jack found himself filled with optimism. He left them on doorknobs and community boards, all the while imagining what the next gathering would feel like. The laughter, the busy hands tending to the earth, the possibility woven into every seed. But just as he felt a spark of excitement, word reached him that the gruff man wasn't alone. Whispers hinted at others from the community who were resistant to the changes, preferring the safety of their old ways. Jack's heart sank. Was it possible to foster healing when shadows lingered? Just as he feared that budding community might face its first challenge, he thought of the gruff man. The unturned page felt more daunting than ever. Would they weather the storm together, or would doubt ultimately snuff out the flickering light of hope? The next day dawned clear and bright, but Jack could feel a heaviness in his chest. As he stepped outside, a gentle breeze brushed against his skin, almost as if trying to encourage him. He took a deep breath and began the day with the same determination that had fueled him since the last gathering. He met up with Sarah at the community center, where they planned to brainstorm ideas for the garden. Jack was grateful for her unwavering enthusiasm. She was like a flame, constant and bright. "What do you think about including a section just for herbs?" she suggested happily, her hands gesturing excitedly. "Those can be really therapeutic." Jack nodded, absorbed in her vision. "That sounds amazing. People can grow their own fresh ingredients. It can make cooking a special experience," he replied, his mind racing with the possibilities. But the looming whispers about dissent in the community nagged at him. As he glanced out the window, the sunlight glinted off something shiny in the distance. It was the silhouette of the gruff man approaching the center. Jack felt his stomach twist in a knot. Would he come to confront them? To crush their plans? When the door opened, the man stood there, tall and imposing. Yet today, he seemed different, his shoulders slightly slumped, an air of uncertainty surrounding him. "Can I come in?" he asked. "Of course," Jack replied, heart racing. "We were just talking about the community garden." "Yeah, I heard." The man stepped inside, hesitating as if testing the waters. "I'm still not sure about all this change. It scares me." "Change can be scary," Jack acknowledged, sitting down and motioning for him to join. "But it can also be a chance to find something new and beautiful." The man stared down at his hands, rough and weathered. "You really think it'll work?" Jack wanted to reassure him, to say yes, absolutely, this is the answer, but instead he said, "I don't know if it will work exactly as we hope, but it's worth trying. Healing doesn't come without risk, and I believe it can bring us together." For a moment, silence hung in the air. Jack leaned forward, determined to connect. "What if we take the first step together? I mean, you don't have to do this alone." The man's eyes flickered with vulnerability. "It's hard for me to put faith in anything new. I've seen too much go wrong. Too much loss." Jack thought of his own fears, how terrified he felt every time he spoke in front of others, each twist of doubt clawing at the edges of his hope. "Then let us face it together," he offered. "No one has to go through this alone anymore." As they spoke, Sarah returned with a stack of flyers. She looked between the two men, sensing the subtle shift in the air. "Hey, I've got an idea. Why don't we set up a meeting to discuss this change? Everyone can voice their fears, and we can work on solutions together." Jack can see the flicker of interest in the man's eyes, a crack in the hard shell he'd built around himself. "I don't know about a meeting. What if we call it a get-together instead?" Sarah interjected, her smile brightening the room. "Think of it as a chance to hear stories, share food, and find a way forward. It could ease some of that weight." The man took a deep breath, something stirring inside him. "All right, I can give it a try." Hope tinged the atmosphere, and Jack's heart soared. But as excitement began to build, he couldn't shake a growing sense of looming challenge. The shadows outside felt heavier now, as if they were watching, waiting to strike. Jack's phone buzzed in his pocket, a text from one of the locals. Recipients of the flyers had started voicing opposition. He felt a cold grip of anxiety rising. What if they turned against them before they even had a chance? "Let us meet again tomorrow to figure out our next steps," he suggested, trying to inject confidence into his voice, despite the fear curling his insides. As they planned, Jack wondered if it was possible to unite when divisiveness brewed just beneath the surface. Together, could they really push through the resistance? Would the bonds they started to forge be enough? With uncertainty looming, Jack felt the tension rise. But something else sparked within him, a resolute fire. He would protect this flicker of hope, no matter the cost. But what would they do when faced with the one thing they feared most, not the failure itself, but unwillingness to change? The morning sun streamed through the community center's windows, casting warm rays on the table where Jack, Sarah, and the man leaned over a handwritten map of the garden. Strokes of green marker signified where they would plant the herbs, vegetables, and flowers. Jack felt an unexpected thrill at seeing ideas come alive, even if uncertainty loomed larger than they dared to acknowledge. Sarah's enthusiasm bubbled over. We could even have classes, teach people how to cook with the herbs they grow. Can you imagine? Her smile was infectious. Jack nodded, trying to keep that spark alive, but his heart thudded as he thought about the text he'd received just hours before. We need to address the concerns the community members have. The man, still shadowed in uncertainty, finally spoke. Those rumors, they're growing. What do you mean? Jack leaned in, his voice steady but edged with worry. The ones that say this project will fail, that it'll only bring chaos. The man's hands clenched tightly on the table. Some are ready to fight against it. They think we're messing with traditions. Jack felt the weight of his words. But it's not just about change, it's about healing. It's about bringing us closer together. No one wants to take risks anymore, the man replied, resignation warming his voice, and I can't say I blame them. I've seen good ideas collapse under pressure. Disappointment washed over Jack. What if we showed them that this can work? What if we organized that get-together? People need to see that they have a stake in this community. They need to meet others, hear their stories. Sarah reached across the table, her fingers lightly touching the man's hand. Look, it's normal to be scared. We all are. But together, we can make it different. For a fleeting moment, Jack saw the flicker of hope again in the man's eyes. Maybe if we gather everyone, they'd see the potential, right? Yes. Jack replied, feeling the tension oscillate between fear and excitement. We can even invite the skeptics, make them feel included from the start. We have to be transparent. The man took a deep breath, tension easing from his shoulders. Maybe if people see a real investment in community effort, they'll change their minds. The small fire of resolution ignited in Jack's heart. Let us set the date for the get-together tomorrow afternoon. As they plotted the details, Jack struggled to silence the nagging thought in the back of his mind. He knew resistance would come, and it could be fierce. But the flame of possibility flickered stronger with each idea they shared. The thought of standing up to dissent, to advocate for their dream, began to feel less daunting, but then another text came through, this one from a close friend who whispered of an ominous meeting brewing among the community elders. They're gathering tonight, it read. To discuss the garden group. His stomach sank. Things might get volatile tonight, he admitted to Sarah and the man, feeling the weight of what was coming. The man straightened, determination lining his face. Then we'll have to be ready. What if we went out there? Sarah suggested. What if we show up and present what we're planning? Lay it all out there? Jack nodded slowly, though fear clung to him like an old coat. Are we ready for that? We have to be, the man replied, his voice steady. Listening is just as important as speaking. As they wrapped up their plans, anticipation hung thick in the air. Jack pondered the vulnerability of standing against possible backlash. Would they really be strong enough as a united front to make a difference? With emotions swelling in him, he realized he was nervous but ready. His voice shook as he said, "This garden can't just be an idea. It needs to be real." Would they find the courage to face the challenge ahead? Would their collective commitment be enough to weather the storm? The answers loomed just beyond their reach. The sun hung low in the Texas sky, casting a golden hue over the town as Jack, Sarah, and their new ally the gruff man stood at the edge of the community center. All their plans had led up to this moment, the impending gathering to discuss the garden and the future of their community. Jack felt the tension swirling around them like a brewing storm cloud. Would they be met with open hearts or hardened scowls? As faces began to fill the room, Jack's heart raced. He spotted familiar faces, some filled with apprehension and others tinted with curiosity. This was it, the community had finally arrived, and now they had to come together. He caught Sarah's eye, her expression a blend of hope and anxiety. They were in this together. When the murmurs settled, Jack stepped forward, every gaze snapping to him. "Thank you all for coming," he began, trying to inject warmth into his voice. "We know there has been talk." He paused, glancing over the crowd, meeting both the curious and doubtful expressions. "But we believe it's time to unite, to nourish not just this land but each other." He felt Sarah beside him, her energy radiating support. Taking a deep breath, he forged ahead. "This garden isn't just about planting seeds in the dirt. It's also about planting hope in our hearts. It's a chance to teach our kids our future what cooperation means." The old man from before, his face softened by the shadows of a long life, leaned forward slightly. "Is it really possible to make that dream a reality?" he asked, quiet but earnest. Jack felt a rush of determination. "Yes." His voice rang out stronger than before. "We can bring our families together. We can make traditions that embrace everyone." The crowd shifted, a low murmur bouncing around like an echo. Jack pressed on, feeling the atmosphere shift, charged with possibility. Change comes with risks. We're scared too. But what we gain is worth it: friendship, understanding, and a deeper bond among us all. This isn't a battle against anyone, it's simply an invitation to build something beautiful. Just as he finished, the gruff man stood up, hands trembling slightly. "My friends, I've fought too many battles in this life to ignore my fears. But listening to Jack, I think he is right. I've seen our hopes crushed. Yet, what if this time is different? What if we devote ourselves to nurturing this garden, together?" Murmurs of agreement began to ripple through the crowd, easing the heaviness that had hung over them. Jack's heart soared, a collective spirit beginning to blossom. "But what if it doesn't work?" Another voice, sharper this time, broke through. Jack recognized it immediately: the woman from the diner who had once scoffed at Sarah. "We can't risk what we have for some pie-in-the-sky idea." Jack stepped forward, meeting her fierce gaze. "What do we have to lose by trying? Fear? We're already living with it. Imagine a future where our kids can laugh, play, and work together. Wouldn't you want that? What about your son?" His voice trembled, but resolve poured out of him. Her expression flickered, uncertainty flashing across her features. It was enough to spark Scott, another community member, who stood up with conviction. "We need to find a way to move forward, together. Let us put aside our differences and make this garden our first step." Once again, the room buzzed with murmurs, flickers of hope igniting potential. A round of applause followed, tentatively at first, but gaining momentum with every clap. Jack took the opportunity to pile on the energy. "Let us take action now. Let us gather next week to start planting," he suggested, courage swelling within him. "We can start small. If we work together, we'll transform not just our land but each other. We'll build trust, laughter, and community one seed at a time." As enthusiasm erupted, Jack's chest felt lighter, and all eyes gleamed with a newfound light. It was happening. They were moving forward, together. As the crowd began to disperse, Sarah squeezed Jack's hand warmly. "You did it. We did it. This is just the beginning." Jack smiled back, feeling a weight lift. Every shadow that had threatened to creep back now felt small against the brilliance of hope that filled their hearts. Maybe change was possible after all. Maybe they would find their way together. Standing amidst the fading sunlight, he realized that collective passion could soar, forging a path through darkness. And as Jack looked toward the horizon, he felt a stirring inside, a glimmer of belief that the future held endless possibilities. All it took was one small seed to start a revolution. And in that moment, he felt joy. True joy. They weren't just surviving, they were finally living again. Now it was time to spread the word, for this community's journey was only just starting. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure we keep bringing you incredible transformations. Comment your reactions and feelings about this powerful ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Your support makes all the difference. True fans understand this.